Hi, this is Teacher Catherine with All the Arts Foundation, and this is another episode of Awesome Drawsome. We talked about value in the other class. Remember, value is kind of a way of talking about whether something is light or dark. Something has a dark value or a light value, and that's often caused by the light coming on the object and then darkness happening around the shadows of that object. So we did some shading, and today we're actually going to try to shade a round shape and see what the shadow looks like. So I'm going to ask you to have your pen and your Prismacolor pencil and your smudger if you have it. If you don't have a smudger, that's okay. You can use your pinky. Okay, let's get started. In our class on value, we talked about how to make something dark, medium, light by how hard we push on our pencil. I tend to always hold my pencil not too close to the tip, but just about right there. And this gives me control for either really dark or going really light. Today we're going to apply this to an object. Let's say I wanted to do a ball. I'm drawing what looks like, to me, a ball, but maybe to you it just looks like a circle. To make it look like a ball, I'm going to give it dimension. I'm going to pretend that the light is coming from up here, so this part of my ball is going to be very light and this part is going to be in the shadow. The way I make the shadow is I start out like we did before, going very dark, and then as I move across, I get a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. Now, doesn't it look a little more like it has dimension? And you can either use your finger to rub that in, or you have this great smudger. And it's the same thing. I'm going to push hard here and then lighter as I move away. Notice how I'm leaving a nice white spot there, because that's where the light is mostly bouncing off my ball. Now, doesn't it look like it has a little more dimension by adding value? Now, not only will the shadow be on the ball, but the shadow will be on the table the ball is sitting on. I can create a shadow by kind of making a version of the shape of the ball. So the ball is kind of round, right? So I'm doing a long shadow that touches the ball underneath and moves away. Now, doesn't the ball really look like a ball now, while before it just looked like a circle? You can do this with any object. A lot of artists like to practice by doing it on a cone. Here's a nice cone shape. Kind of looks like a dunce hat. But the same thing, if I decide the light is coming from this direction, I'm going to make this side pretty dark. And then as I move up, it's going to get lighter and lighter. I'm going to use my smudger again just because it's so fun to use. It's rolled up paper. You can actually make your own smudger if this one wears down. And look how light I'm doing it at one side. Now doesn't it look like the cone has more dimension? And now I'm going to add a shadow kind of in a cone shape, but long and skinny. And the shadow is always just a little bit darker, closer to the cone. Now my cone looks like it's sitting on something, doesn't it? I could even pretend that the light is really low, and the lower my light is, the longer my shadow is going to be. That's just kind of fun to do. What other shapes could you make look like it's three-dimensional by adding a shadow? Why don't you go find an object or a piece of fruit in your kitchen and set it somewhere where there's a lot of light? Can you think of something that you could make look like it has dimension by adding shadow? I love finding the shadows in objects. It makes them really interesting to me. Can you get an orange or an apple or a banana and set it by the window and see if you can see the shadow that it makes and the shape of the shadow? Now try doing a very simple drawing of that object and put the shadow in and see if that makes your object even more interesting. This has been another episode of Awesome Drawsome with Teacher Catherine and All the Arts Foundation. Thanks for joining us.